Will you do the pose for us? Will you do it? It's so good.
So if you're going to mock my book, you could at least tell everybody the title.
What? I feel like we could do like a social media campaign. But you genuinely look so good on the cover of the book. And that's a thing for you. You don't like being on the cover of your own books.
It took a long time. By the way, the book is called The Way of the Warrior, An Ancient Path to Inner Peace.
Yes, The Way of the Warrior, An Ancient Path to Inner Peace. Which should just be a book that just is The Way of the Warrior. Aaron, please listen to your father.
Well, you're right. For 20 years, I was never on the cover of my books.
Ever.
And you're the one that really drove me to do that.
Yeah.
And it was not an easy, like, psychological decision, but I think it's been important to do that because really my books are very connected to my story, and I'm not writing as a researcher. I'm writing as a writer who is a liver of life.
A huge part of that conversation too was your names don't make sense.
No, it's pretty funny.
So,
yeah, I mean, it's more true now, but when I was in my 30s and 20s, when people would hear the name Erwin McManus, they'd always be shocked when they'd see me and they go, "We thought you were going to be like this old bald guy."
Yeah.
And now I'm old, at least I'm not bald, but even when I was in my 30s, no one imagined a Latino or, a guy who's Spanish, more, I guess, international. And it's kind of funny. So my name always was a misbrand because it's an alias. It's not my real name. It is my real name now, but Erwin is German, McManus is Irish, and I'm Spanish.
It's so funny. And this is the beginning, or this is the second kind of installation of, what was the genre that we dubbed the genre that you were creating, like a heroic narrative?
Yeah, it really is. Really, the narrative of my writing is it's a heroic narrative.
Right.
That I spend my life trying to awaken the hero inside of people, and I see spirituality as a heroic journey to our true self, to our most human self. And I thought it was interesting because one of the publishers actually responded saying he's created his own genre. And I thought it was one of the best compliments I've ever gotten. I thought that was really beautiful. I want to create my own genre. I want to create a genre where spirituality is seen as essential for everyday life.
Yeah.
Not religion and not the Christian life, but what it means to be the essence of being human.
And so kind of, I have this book and I have another notebook full of notes we just spent the last, 36 hours breaking down your book chapter by chapter, creating a behind the scenes kind of view of not just what's in the chapter, but really what isn't in the chapter. And you created, I think it was 8 to 12, I think some of them might have been 14 minutes long, around each of the 8 chapters.
I'm really excited about the video content.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Because I get to talk about the backdrop of the chapters and some of the thinking that informs the chapters. I'm not just repeating what's in the chapter, but I'm setting up the chapter.
So the last book, The Last Arrow, it starts almost more in a painful place and ends with battle ready, like you're gearing up for war. This actually starts from a place where you're trying to achieve peace, and it ends in how do you stand against pain. There's this really interesting thing that you almost flipped the construct of the book, or your pattern of the book, or your structure of the book. Why did you? Did you think to that at all, or did that happen naturally?
That's a really great insight, but I think maybe it's because the reality is that the battle is never over in this life.
Wow.
That we're always going to have to face new challenges, new problems, new struggles, and that you can feel like you have peace, and then suddenly you lose that peace, and you can feel like, wouldn't it be great if peace was like a state of being where you arrive and you never lose it ever again?
Yeah. Wow. It
would be a beautiful thing, and yet there's always going to be something that goes to war against your peace. I just want you to stop and just identify inside of yourself, because you'll identify for so many people. What are some of the things you would say practically steal peace from your own life?
I think so many things are people. It's a lot of it's rooted in relationship and how healthy a relationship is, but on so many different facets, right? You have a relationship with your mom or your dad, and my relationship with my mom has been something that's grown over time, and she's someone who's so intense and so confident and deals with a lot of the same insecurities that I deal with. more of like a mirror image of the things that my weaknesses or her weaknesses, and we've really had to learn how to not how to love each other, but how to like work hand in hand. But even just friendships and people who work for you, or people on teams, or how do you stay at peace with all men? And I think it's interesting that you write a book on this, and maybe I guess it must have been in my subconscious, but I felt like the theme that is over my life this year is how to stay at peace with all men. And it happened around, I feel like we've been talking about a lot of like how to hear God's voice, and I think it's something that's been really fascinating. Eric Johnson said something about, if we're Christians who only seek to be in his presence, then we're missing the whole purpose of Jesus. Like, it's one thing to be in God's presence, but another thing to actually do what God's telling you to do. At least it's what I'm not quoting him verbatim, but it was like the idea of this thing, and it was a brilliant message, and it really like helped me think. And we were at conference, and stuff happened, and I had a friend who kind of like poured his heart out to me about stuff that was going on in his life with him and his wife, and real things, and then he told me, there's also, by the way, there's all these people saying really bad things about you. Just got to let you know. And I felt like it was that moment where I had to decide whether I was going to be a peaceful person or go to war with all of those people. And someone really smart, who I do care about a lot, said that was it, the path to the path of wisdom is peace, and achieving peace and achieving wisdom is it goes hand in hand. That a wise person achieves peace.
Yeah. I think the reality is that all of us have expectations of life, expectations of others, and expectations of ourselves. Whenever those expectations are not met, we begin to lose our peace. When other people don't meet a standard that we expect, we're at risk of losing our peace. When you're in a relationship and maybe the other person isn't as in as you, or maybe things aren't working out right, that steals your peace. Or you might be at peace and suddenly you lose your job, and that steals your peace. And I think we have to realize that every day there are going to be things that happen to us, and we can't actually allow our circumstances or the outside environment to steal our peace. We have to realize that our peace is ours to hold on to, and that we're less powerful when we give up our peace. When we stand in peace, when we have peace in our inner world, we can actually face really difficult, challenging, even violent circumstances and never respond in the way that other people do, because we actually step into those situations from our peace, not without our peace.
It's so good. I'm pulling up a verse, but keep going.
I thought you were texting a friend.
No. my phone's on airplane mode. But I was looking up a verse because I really wanted to. This was it. It was James 3:13-18, and it said, "If you consider yourself to be wise and one who understands the ways of God, advertise it with a beautiful, fruitful life guided by wisdom's gentleness."
Wow.
And it said further down, it said, "But the wisdom from above is always pure, filled with peace, considerate and teachable. It is filled with love and never displays prejudice or hypocrisy in any form, and it always bears the beautiful harvest of righteousness. God's seeds of wisdom's fruit will be planted with peaceful acts by those who cherish making peace." And I just thought that was something that was so, like, even because you were talking about all the different things that kind of disrupt our peace. Like, I think so many times, especially with young people, I know, like being in New York and being like, I don't know what my next job is. I don't know how I'm going to pay for rent. I don't, and being in that season was trying to do it on my own and not taking a lot of help from anyone, and realizing like how something so small, what it felt like so small was actually something that was so huge. And I think we take for granted the things that keep us in peace, that seem small, that seem just like natural. And you realize for most of the world and most of culture, those are the things that are disrupting their lives and weighing so heavy on their life. They're not able to get to a place to think even at a deeper level or feel at a deeper level, because they're still so suffocating by the everyday task that is disrupting their life, right? And then I think it just makes me realize how blessed I am in and that seems cheesy, but
No, it's good.
you know,
One of the things you said that actually struck me, it came to my mind when you're reading the passage and kind of unwrapping it, was that there's a difference between being right and being wise. And you can be right, but not wise if you're not coming from a place of peace. And so you can actually be right in an argument with your wife, or you can be right in an argument with a coworker, you can be right in an argument with a friend. But if you're not coming from a place of peace, you'll be right, but you won't be wise. Because right wins the argument, but wise wins the person. And if we can make the shift in our life from wanting to be right to wanting to be wise, from wanting to win the argument to wanting to win the person, it'll change everything in our life.
it's so interesting. I feel like, I don't know, because how real can we be?
Just to be as real as
I'm
you
gonna
want
be
to
real. We can cut it out later.
No, we keep the real part.
Keep the real part.
We cut out the fake.
Okay. No, I think a huge thing, because at conference, I kind of just babbled on about that conference and kind of what it's been. But I feel like that was a moment, our conference, Mosaic's conference in November, was a kind of a huge turning point, at least in my life too. I feel like I've been trying to achieve peace, and I always joke that you've achieved enlightenment, because you're such a calm person, you're such a wise person, and you genuinely always take the weak hand. You're never like forceful, you're never controlling, you're never, and I am all of those things. I think it's, and we, it goes back to that moment where I really felt like in the church world or in the Christian world, or like most of my problems, which is ironic, or haters or people who talk badly, most of it comes from Christians. And how do we, and then I read the Bible, not a Bible, but I read the Bible and I pray and I try to hear God's voice, and I often wonder if they listen to the same God that I listen to. Do you know what I mean? Or if they read the same Bible I read. And I always find it so fascinating that people can speak on other people's lives or situations so casually and cavalier without the actual acknowledgement of the ramifications of their words and the spreading of that. And I had a really interesting conversation with someone in Seattle, and I say this because I felt like the conversation went really well. And I was like, you can be brush fire. Like your words can destroy things, or your words can be like create the greatest buzz and rumor of something beautiful. And how do you not go to war and protect yourself in moments where you really just need to bring peace? And what are those moments how do you choose, right?
Yeah, I think one thing is that when you are actually at peace, you simply just don't engage in slander and gossip and malice.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't come out of you. Because when there's peace within you, you want to bring peace to other people. And I mean, it would be so easy to spend your life identifying everything wrong with everybody else. But if you're spending your life doing that, it means that all you're trying to do is hide all the wrong inside of you. And when you're at peace with yourself, and I made the decision years ago, because I would get maligned and slandered and gossiped about all the time.
Death threats.
Oh, death threats, yeah, those were real. And I just decided a long time ago that I would believe that God is my defender. And so if I did something wrong, I would own it. If I made a mistake, I would own it. Where there were shortcomings in my life, I would just own it. And I feel like if I own it, it makes those people powerless. And it's hard to say to yourself, I'm like, God, defend me. Because there were times in my life, I just wanted to go and defend myself and take care of the problem. And because it's funny.
Because we're Latin.
I know, because I'm just going to be straight up. I don't know. A lot of times Christians have the courage to say really horrible things about people, because they are believing that person actually is a Christian. They won't come and beat the out of them. And so there are times I just go, oh man, and everything inside of me wants to defend myself. Everything inside of me wants to fight back.
Yeah.
And then I realize, oh, wait a minute, that person is a person who has no joy. See, I can tell you the moment a person slanders or gossips or talks about someone else, that person has no joy. Because I can say when I'm full of joy, when I'm fully alive, I don't have time or desire or inclination to say anything negative about anybody in the world. It's only when I'm unhappy with my life do I find the energy to be unhappy about someone else's life.
Yeah.
And I think this is a huge cultural problem. There's so much social media where everybody's attacking each other and destroying each other and maligning each other and trying to find everyone their worst moments and going, this is not just a movement of gossip and slander and malice. This is a massive epidemic of unhappiness because only unhappy people do that.
It's so interesting. But I think it perpetuates from the overall, and it stems from the overall culture of like where it roots from, and not like even just from the shows of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, right? Like I'm not like nothing bad about them, but just that is the culture of like we spend our lives watching other people's lives happen. Yeah. They're brilliant. They've created a show where they just live their lives. Like they're the geniuses on that level, right? But then I think we become like spectators of like every person's life.
But I want you to remember something. Slander can't hurt you unless you actually are trying to elevate as a person. See?
No, but it physically hurts me, right?
Yes, no, what I'm saying is the reason it hurts you is because you actually want to be a better person.
Right, I was just living in a substandard. You'd be like, oh,
yeah,
you're just telling me exactly what I am.
Yeah, I was listening to someone on television say that they were asked, well, hey, what about all your casual sexual partners? They said, I'm good with it. And I realized, look, if you're good with it, it doesn't bother you when people say it.
Yeah.
So part of the reason that it actually is hurtful is it's people trying to keep other people the way they used to be.
Right.
Rather than allowing them to become who they're aspiring to be as a person.
Right. And I actually watched that interview with you. I know who you're talking about.
Yes, and I like him a lot.
Yeah, I'm going to say the name because he's public and he put it out there, but it's Dak Shepard and Kristen
I was
Bell.
so impressed by his
But in
interview.
the context of it, he was saying it was a conversation between him and Kristen Bell,
right.
and that and I don't know their lives and I don't know them. I hear lovely things. I think friends of friends, but he said I had gone through like an AA program, right? Like he had gone through like a 12-step program, and they said that the program that he went through taught him to release it all. And I'm like, I think that's where I think a bit of the conversation, and you talked about this. And so he basically said, I released it all in this program, and I outed myself about all the things that shamed me and guilted me and made me feel unclean.
So powerful.
And it was really powerful. He wasn't saying I'm good with it. He's saying, I know that I'm not that person anymore.
Right, and that's what you have to do. You have to go, one, if you still are that person and you're good with it, it isn't going to bother you anyway.
Right.
And if you used to be that person, but you're no longer that person, you don't have to live in that.
And I think that's the interesting thing that I'm dealing with, and that I think a lot of people are dealing with, and that it is I am not who I used to be, but they still have my number. Do you know what I mean? And that I still exist in a world where all of my past is, whether it's a decade out or years out, like I'm not who I was, but I'm definitely living in the ramifications of the past, right? Of people who think they know things, and I try to be as open as you possibly can when people ask, like, was this, what happened or what, and I'm like, look, I was a really broken person and really dealt with really broken things, and how do you, and a lot of that was self-worth and lack of identity, and also going, if and this isn't to blame Christians, but it was going, if these are all the rules you play by, but you're still like these soulless, like vile creatures that judge me anyways, I think the other half has something that we don't, the other side has something that we don't know.
Yeah, I think a part of you was, you were trying so hard to be a good person and you were always being judged and you were never good enough in your mind.
Yeah.
And so you thought, hey, if you're going to judge me anyway, I might as well go ahead and be everything you think I am.
And there was, that was probably a bit too true. And I put people through tough situations. I put you through a lot, and I'm grateful for the people who said, had my back. But even with that, it caused a lot of internal rage. It caused a lot of warring inside of who I knew I was supposed to be, and who I was trying to be, but who I was unable to achieve. And even now in relationships with people, there's, you'll be like, well, there was someone who was talking about you, and that's the ironic thing. There's other pastors' kids, and there's others Christians who spend more time talking about us and not even like us. We stay pretty far off. Like I've been off social media for a month. You asked us to fast, and I fasted social media, and it's been like the most incredible thing. It was weird for the first week, and then I realized like how much noise there was in my life. And there can be so much goodness. Like I'm sure there's friends that I haven't hung out with because we haven't been DMing each other like
they
funny stories.
Think you ghosted.
I know. I was like, shoot, I should have like really let people know before it happened. But but it's been like an ideological shift for me that if I want to see someone, I actually have to like reach out. And for me, someone who's borderlines introversion, I will be isolated. Like the first couple weeks, I was like, all my friends are busy. And I don't know what anyone else is doing and who's available. And so it became this thing where I'm having to like outreach and reach out to people and going, okay, what's going on, you know?
Well, I love the saying that you're not who you used to be and you're not who you're going to be.
Right. That's funny. They're like really churchy saying though.
Yeah, sorry. I just went with churchy saying, 101.
Yeah.
But here's the thing too. I think what we learn is we need to give other people grace.
Yeah.
Like, we need to treat other people with the same level of grace and compassion and hope for their future as we want people to give us. And the only way we can change the pattern is by being different ourselves. And so my advice would be for people, for yourself, for anyone who's struggling with this stuff is one, just like own your journey. The Bible's full of people who are the prodigal sons and daughters. And, God never seems to hold us in our past, but always sets us free to our future. And so what I would say is like, just own the fact that you're imperfect, never argue about that, but don't let other people hold you to your past. And don't let it also inflame you or cause you to have rage or anger, because then they own you. Then they're controlling your emotions. And listen to the people who love you. Look, you got so many people saying positive things about you, and there are people. I remember this. I'll bet you it was like 20 years ago. Rick Warren actually said to me, "Erwin,"
I remember this.
He said, "If I actually responded to all the haters, all I would do every day of my life is respond to haters." And I'm like, who hates Rick Warren? Right? He's nicest guy in the world, wearing Hawaiian shirts and lives in Orange County, and and trying to make the world a better place. But the reality is that if you try to do anything good in life, and if you try to be a better person in life, you're always going to have haters. If you try to create a better world, you're always going to have haters. And I one time heard someone actually hating on Mother Teresa. And I thought,
that doesn't really make any sense.
Wow, I mean, you have enough time in your life to find something wrong with Mother Teresa. You need a life.
Yeah. But even then, like,
what do you say?
No, I was just saying I was driving, and I think there's been a frustrating situation in my life where some people have spoken like poorly on me years ago. I think because I was attached to people who they didn't like, and it's the irony of like, if they had really known, I actually wasn't that close with those people. And I quickly realized that what was actually going on in those situations, and nothing like heavy or dramatic, but just that they weren't like the people I should be hanging with. But it's interesting how proximity brings this label when you're spending time with certain people, or you're in photos with certain people, or you're in connection with certain people, how people just immediately group you with them and put their feelings towards those people with you, and thinking that they know you and they've never known you. And I've tried to say this as much as possible to people. I'll always speak of my past to the people that I care about. If they want to know anything, I'll tell them. But I know for a fact that those people don't know anything about me because they've never talked to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny. This week I told your mom, early on, 30 years ago, I had people who really were antagonistic to me because they saw me with other people.
It's crazy.
And they despised those people, or had an offense against those people, or they were adversarial toward those people I didn't even know. Years later I said, what in the world happened? Why did you react to me this way? Or why did you do this, and they would say, well, we saw you with that person, and so we assumed you were in their camp, and I didn't even know there were camps.
Oh, that's the interesting thing. This is like the dark side of church, right? There's a pastor who was starting a new church this last year, and they moved to the States, and they said, we had no idea that there were sides. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, they had no idea that there was like these different kind of like sides, and if you were a part of this team, you couldn't go speak in these places, and you're part of these places, you couldn't go speak in this places. And I was like, well, we don't have guest speakers at Mosaic very often, so you can always be on our side, and you just want to speak. But we will always want friends, and I think a bit of that has hurt us at times. But even this, I was in the car, and I was talking to my friend, and I was having this conversation of, I found out the things someone was saying about me, and it wasn't true, and it was really hurtful, and I try to stay away from the circles completely now. I'm probably the last person you'll see in the green room. I'm not really super fond of a lot of preachers, and I'm not really fond of the people that they keep. And not that I dislike them, I just like, you've always taught us like that's not the room you need to be. I need to be in the other room. And so I was like, it's time to go to war, because they think they know things about me, but I actually know the things about them that are true. And that was when the person read me that verse about being unwise. But how do you...
So you were motivated to do the same thing to them that was hurting you, that other people were doing to you.
No, the difference is that I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, I have made that mistake of judging people for sure, and people I probably should apologize to for being in rooms with people I disliked and then calling them on it. And I think that was the mistake of my youth. And I think when I hear things about other young guys or young girls, I genuinely do give them the benefit of the doubt, because I know what I went through, and I know that the journey that I was on, and I'm not perfect, and I know there's so much stuff, but I always feel like I'm grace giving, or I give as much, like, okay, they're probably just like figuring their life out. They're not a terrible person. They're just in a season of like, really trying to figure what it is that they want out of all of this thing, And I think that's the huge thing with faith in the Bible and relationship with God, is like, you always say the moment isn't magic. It's like you have to choose to keep loving Jesus and to keep being changed by like what God wants for us in our lives. And there was that moment where I had to go from like the journey that I had set on, it had to go from like being called to Jesus, a relationship with him, to actually being able to like build the character that could follow him,
So if you're going to give a 23-year-old Aaron advice on how to step into a new life, what would you say to them?
I think for me, I'd say like, first off, find someone who's much wiser than you, and take 6 months to a year where you're not making your own decisions, your own life decisions. Like really let someone who you trust set you on a path that will like direct you, like not to be cheesy, but like direct you towards a life of righteousness. Do you know what I mean? I think I was so like, okay, I got this, I can do it. And then so quickly and so easily I was distracted or deterred by whether it was like my old life or me not knowing and having the motor skills to actually function towards a actual true life of faith. Do you know what I mean? It's like the practical things. Stay inside, don't talk to girls. No, but I really do think like getting involved with like healthy guys, taking a season where you're fully like involved with healthy people who are speaking life into you, and some people don't have that. Like they're like, hey, I gotta go to work, and not everyone at work loves Jesus, and not everyone at work is like a good person, or not everyone at school is XYZ. Like just try to remove yourself from as much as you can and be with positive people. And I think, what's that, like we went and saw that movie, Glass, me and you, and it was like the M. Night Shyamalan part where the director always puts himself in the movie.
Yes.
And he like refers to like the Unbreakable movie where he's like, man, I used to hang out with some shady characters in that place. He's like, I turned my life around, positive thinking or something. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I had that thought, I was like, but a lot of it was like who I surrounded myself with. And you talk about that a lot in this book of like, who is what energy do you like put out, and what energy do you bring into your soul? And I think that 6 months to a year of like your new faith at 23 or 33 or whatever it is what are you actually intaking to your soul? I wish I had cut out a lot of the stuff earlier on of just what I was inhaling. Like I know that when I wake up, the first steps in my day need to just be like praying, worshiping, and stepping into that relationship. I'm not like what I stepped into at the beginning of my day before was just, I wandered, I'd go to work, I'd grab a coffee, conversation started. Like I take my day to my own responsibility now. Does that make sense?
Like you spend a lot of time in the scriptures.
A lot of time. And a lot of that is like early morning, like waking up at 5 a.m. or waking up at 7 a.m. and reading. Like if I have a moment where I feel bored, confused, lonely, or isolated, or I have a moment in the car in traffic, I'm trying to read my Bible. And because for me, that was a thing that set my life into a course of actual health.
Yeah, I mean, I think you read your Bible more than I do. In fact, I'm certain of it.
But you remember more.
But you also pray a lot.
I pray as much as I can, yeah.
And so if you were going to break down, what do you pray about?
What do I pray about?
Yeah, for someone who...
Well, a lot of it's been me lately. And I felt really guilty. I was like, I'm not praying for the people I need to be praying for. So I have like a notes folder in my phone where it literally says Aaron to God.
Wow.
And I just write. I realized that I'm so OCD that I would just pray for the same things again and again and again and again. And then I wasn't actually moving anywhere with my prayer. And so I was like, okay, I need to actually write out my prayers. And I write them out, and it helps me with everything that I'm praying for.
Okay, so you already told us. So you read your Bible a lot.
A lot.
You pray a lot, but you also journal.
Yeah, journal, yeah.
You journal, so you journal your prayers.
Yeah, I write my prayers down, yeah. For me, I'm visual and I'm tactile. So I have to like feel that I'm actually giving something. Yeah.
Because you are very open about everything that's wrong with you.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you don't actually share with the world everything that's right with you.
Well, that's boring.
And I just thought it'd be really helpful for people who are really inspired by you and who follow you to know you actually take spiritual practices really seriously in your life.
Very much so now. But it was the journey to be disciplined, right? Mm-hmm. It was like, okay, what do I do when I wake up? What are those? I think that's a lot of the things I think about. Is like, what's the first thought that I have in the morning? What's the last thought that I have when I go to sleep? And I think in the moments of crisis, it really helps me. It determines what my first thought will be.
Okay, so I'm going to let you teach someone right now who's struggling with anxiety, fear, stress, and they don't have any peace. What's the first thing they should do?
First thing they should do? Well, they buy The Way of the Warrior. Sorry, that's a bad joke. Bad joke. No, but really though, we were actually talking about this, and this book is like, it's what I go through. It's what I'm going through with peace and choosing peace, but the first steps of someone who's struggling with anxiety, I think a huge part of it is community. Is get out of your head, get out of your box, get out of your car, and actually be around people. I laughed the other day because I was in a coffee shop. I had sunglasses on, a hood on, a hat on, and my AirPods in. And I was like, I am the most unreachable person in this coffee shop right now. I look so just disconnected and uninterested in what's from the barista to the people in the room. And I think so in this, I'm we're talking about Glass and Unbreakable. But what is that Bruce Willis doing Unbreakable? He walks into these public places and he touches people and he gets these moments where he feels these things. And and your whole book is about energy. Not your whole book, but there's a chapter in the book where it talks about energy and what you receive from people. What do you bring into a room and what do you receive from a room? And I think so many times I choose to isolate myself to achieve something that God has already provided for me in that place.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really, really good. We need to continue this conversation. This is really, I think, really, really helpful. And maybe over the battle readies to come, we'll take different subjects that come out of The Way of the Warrior.
Yeah, for sure.
And have some conversations about real life. Mm-hmm. All right. So why don't we bring this one to a close?
Okay.
And it's good to be doing Battle Ready again with you, by the way.
So good. I know. And we're on the couch, and they'll notice what this couch. They'll know what this couch is for soon.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
All right. Hey,
Love you.
See you next time.
Get this book, The Way of the Warrior. It comes out very soon. See you soon.